So, good morning. We'll call the meeting to order. Just go off script for a second. I guess, Charles, you were not able to access the new system. Is that
Not
right?
yet.
So not yet. Okay. How about
Same.
Jita?
I already coordinated to have IT help with
Okay.
that after this.
Okay. I was able to get in after I realized I was on the wrong browser. I started using the right browser, but you still have to put in your full email address and password to log on. So until that's single sign-on's changed a little later, it's going to be the way it is. Jewel says she has to do that multiple times a day. No, so I want to make sure we're doing it right. Okay, motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Down here on the, it says, I guess it's giving us instructions, recommend approval, so I guess ignore those. On my recommended approval agenda, is that just instructions for the the unknowing down there?
That's the action item. So
Okay,
behind the scenes, that's where.
that's good. I need the instructions as I go along. That's great. All right, moving on to action items. Extension of the, it's annual, right? Extension of banking services contract. Yes, that's you, Sally.
Yes, good morning. Welcome back,
Morning.
everyone.
Thank you.
This first item is to seek approval to extend our banking services. Just for some background, 5 years ago, an RFP was issued and we did get 3 responses to that proposal. And an internal evaluation committee independently reviewed that and all of them chose Wells Fargo. So the contract at that time did include 2 one-year extensions. And staff is seeking to extend the contract with Wells Fargo through December 31st, 2027. Good morning. For these reasons, we've experienced very few issues with Wells Fargo and they're very responsive. The team also meets with us annually. They come out and meet in person with us and talk about new services, how we're doing, how we're utilizing the current services. Daily file transfers to and from Wells Fargo's were automated during the S/4HANA transition. Interest earnings offset fees, so we don't pay anything out of pocket. They just take that from our account, from our interest earnings. Wells Fargo also offered the lowest fees for services requested and an earnings credit rate of 0.25%. Wells Fargo provides banking services also for Fairfax Water and Prince William Service Authority. And finally, pricing for the contract extension will remain at current pricing.
Good.
Any questions?
Questions? Okay,
I can move the motion.
okay, please. Sure.
I move the recommendation to the board to approve 2 one-year extensions of the banking services contract with Wells Fargo for the fiscal years 2026 and 2027.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, well, that's approved. We'll move that to the board on consent. So it's
And
approved.
the clicker for presentation.
Oh, okay.
Financials, yeah.
You hear that, Sally? We move that for consent to the board. Sally. Jewel. All right. Next, we've got proposed changes to procurement policy.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for having me. My name is Amy Bevins. If I haven't met you, I'm the procurement director here at Loudon Water. The purpose of this action item is to seek approval of the proposed changes to the Loudon Water procurement policy. The procurement of goods, services, insurance, and construction, as well as the disposal of surplus property, must follow the Virginia Public Procurement Act, or also known as the VPPA. Loudon Water adopted its first procurement policy in 1983 to ensure compliance with the VPPA. And since the policy has been revised periodically to reflect legislative and administrative updates. The revised procurement policy before you today, effective October 1st, 2025, is intended to align with the most recent legislative changes and improve clarity for staff who carry out these procurement responsibilities. Oh, do you mind if I get back? There we go. Alrighty, so legislative changes, I'll go over these on this slide and then an overview of the procurement policy changes on the next slide. So the legislative changes that took effect and require an update to our policy include Code of Virginia Section 2.24303G. For non-transportation related construction, public bodies may establish written small purchase procedures not requiring competitive sealed bidding or negotiation if the aggregate amount for single or term contracts do not exceed $300,000. So this is up from the previous $200,000. So again, the threshold increases from $200,000 to $300,000. For transportation-related construction, public bodies may set small purchase procedures for contracts not exceeding $25,000. The small purchase threshold is capped at $25,000. So anything over $25,000 requires a formal solicitation for transportation-related construction. Under Code of Virginia 43.1, Section 2.24378, this is our construction management and design build contracting procedures. These have been revised. Design bid build is reaffirmed as the default method for construction procurements. This requires local governing resolution to pursue design build or construction management specific to the project and adopted in a public forum prior to the issuance of a request for qualifications. This requires written determination that the design bid build is not practicable or physically advantageous, which must include the basis for determining that the project is also complex, as defined by the Code of Virginia. This also mandates advertisement on the state's e-procurement system, EVA, or the local body's e-procurement system. And the new law prohibits the use of prior construction management and design build experience as pre-qualification criteria, though other comparable project experience may be considered. Any questions on the legislative changes?
I had one. Where does this written determination need to go? Is that just in the RFQ itself, or are we sending that?
It does get included in the RFQ, but the determination needs to be written to the board, to the general manager, and then it's presented to the board prior to the issuance of the first step of the two-step procurement.
Okay. So we'll have to write it, and then it gets presented to us.
Yes,
Brian, and then we go, great, and
correct. Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the procurement policy changes. Here I'll highlight the specific updates reflected in the revised procurement policy. Again, the construction thresholds. If you haven't had a chance to view our procurement policy, this is on pages 4 with the approvals on page 6, and then there's a table on pages 8 and 9. The non-transportation small purchase limit threshold has increased from $200,000 to $300,000, and there's new information in the policy related to transportation-related construction, where small purchases are capped at $25,000. Construction management and design build, we've now added the terms and definitions and clearly stated the design bid build in our procedures. Construction management and design build requires local resolution and a public forum before the RFQ is released. The written determination must also include why design bid build was not the perfect fit for that procurement, and also justify the complexity as it's defined in the VPPA. It also requires a mandatory posting either on EVA or Loudon Water's e-procurement system, and no prior construction management or design build experience as a pre-qualification requirement. We can ask for comparable experience. In the approval table of the policy, we have revised those to reflect those changes with the new thresholds. And for all construction, board approval has increased from $200,000 to $300,000. Administrative enhancements include streamlining language, consolidating procurement thresholds, aligning terminology with current practice, and improving the overall reliability and usability of the policy.
Amy, just a quick question.
Mhm.
Why is there a difference between non-transportation and transportation? And what's an example of transportation related construction?
Yeah.
expense?
So we rarely do any transportation-related construction, but did need to adopt it in our policy. The last time we've done anything transportation-related was when we built the bridge out at Trap Rock
Rock.
about
Mhm.
10, 12 years ago is when we did that procurement.
Any reason why this threshold is that low, or is it between
It's-
the two? I mean, one's.
I think
very
it's
fairly
just
high.
all of the prime contractors lobbying for a lower limit to.
Okay.
And you also have to take into consideration other cities, towns throughout the state of Virginia that have maybe smaller procurements rather than us in Northern Virginia. So this applies to everyone in the state of Virginia.
Okay, thank you.
When we're doing procurements, do we ordinarily advertise it on EVA or only our system?
So the law, previously it required us to use EVA for these types of procurements. What was added was that we are now allowed to use our own e-procurement system to advertise. We can do both, but previously on these specific projects, they were advertised on EVA.
So did we even have a system ourselves?
We do, yeah,
But we didn't use it because we weren't allowed to?
correct.
Interesting.
We did use it, but we were required to also post on
Okay.
EVA. So we did do both.
Yeah, EVA's more for advertising, but all of our internal procurement practice is run through our system.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in practice, moving forward, do you think, are we planning to continue to post?
We can
on
certainly
eBay?
do that, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
so really it doesn't result in much of a change for
No,
us?
not for us, no.
Okay, great.
No.
And you can see, you might not know, you can go out on our website and see their system, Ion Wave, and the bids that are active and.
I'll look at it.
Yeah.
I've never taken the time to look at it.
Okay. Yep, go to the Loud and Water website and then go to vendors at the top. Click on that and it will show how to do business with Loud and Water. It has our landing page for the solicitations. Okay, and then I have our recommended motion. Do you have another question?
I had a question.
Sure.
I did not read all the background, so I'll just tell you that right up front. I will go back because I've had some procurement questions along the way in the past. If you have a non-construction project, and from time to time, we have planning studies that we procure. There was one or two earlier this year, I think, for planning, and they were awarded to the same firm. They were both, I don't know, about 400 or 500, and in total were about $1 million. What is the procurement policy for a non-construction project, like a study or a planning exercise? How do you evaluate that? And if that is a longer, deeper dive, we can talk about it later.
If I may, one of the items later in the meeting is a overview of our entire procurement policy. So I think we'll touch on that then. Yes. Mhm.
Okay, someone want to make the motion? I'll move the recommendation to the board to approve the Loud and Water procurement policy as revised to reflect current Virginia Public Procurement Act, VPPA provisions, including raising the non-transportation related construction small purchase threshold to 300,000, establishing a $25,000 small purchase threshold for transportation related construction, updating approval levels, tables, and construction procurement methods in accordance with the Code of Virginia.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
See, this goes to the board. I think we can put this on consent. Changes. Does any members feel that the board should be an action item?
No.
Anybody?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, huh? Yeah, okay. All right, we'll put it on consent then. Thank you. Okay, Sally, sorry, excuse me.
Okay, next
Mid-year
item
financial
is
goals.
information for the report on mid-year review results. Here's our agenda, but same. So we'll jump right in. We did present you with a conservative operating budget capital spending plan was approved for 190.4 million. We continued cost-saving measures for controllable costs, and we exercised prudent financial planning. The process was that we evaluated revenues, expenses, and capital expenditures as of June. And I need to thank everybody in the back and all the cost center owners who aren't in the room because they do this from the ground up. So they're looking at their detail and sending me any variances. Then I consolidated it all, and that's how we project operating results and capital expenditures through year end. So overall, as the results recap, operating revenues are expected to be about 106% of budget projections, and we'll get into why on the next slides. Operating expenses inclusive of depreciation are expected to be at 97% of budget, and the same for non-operating. So non-operating revenues are going to exceed, and non-operating expenses will be below estimates. Funding is available for our anticipated capital expenditures, and we'll use this experience as we develop the 2026 budget. Okay, so revenues. If we look at the middle there, there's total operating revenues. So that's your 6%. We're forecasting 142 million versus our budget of 133 million. The other operating revenue line, so the one right above the middle bold, is the one that's driving that increase. And that, as a reminder, includes that Luckett's equalization fee. So that's 5.2 million. So when we set the budget, we set revenues at 98% of the rate study. And then if I back out that 5.2 million, we're about 100% of the rate study with our projection. So that works out nicely. And then non-operating revenues, of course, our availability charges are well exceeding our budget, and that's due to our excess ERCs that we had, the December rollovers, plus we've had the expansions that weren't budgeted for. And investment income, we do very conservative in our budget, and we're projected to exceed that as well. So the operating revenues, 106% of budget projections, it's being driven by the user rate increase that went into effect, and the other operating revenues of the 5.2 million. If I go back, well, the operating revenues, they're projected to come in above, but about 3% more than budget. So not as much as the other operating revenue line. And then the non-operating revenues, as I kind of spoke about, was driven by the ERCs. And as of July, we're at 3,408. Budget was at 2020. So we're going to increase that to 5,000 for the year. I know. Last year, it would be slightly like last year was 5,290. I think we ended up at. So it'll be under that, but still a strong year for connections. And then interest income is expected to stay above budget. Are there any questions on revenues while we're here?
What are we gonna do with all that revenue?
Yeah.
Mr. Carnes?
Well, yeah, well, we have a robust capital expenditure plan. So we did preliminary roll it into the 5-year plan of finance to see what it would do. And it is pushing out our borrowing. So it is, we were expecting borrowing in 2020. I have it on another
I
slide.
think it was 27.
27, and it's pushing it out to 2029.
I think so.
Yeah, and I have I'll get to it.
But that doesn't include what our new CIP would be going forward. This is just taking the 5-year plan that we presented to you in the spring and updating what we think the year end 2025 would be. So
Good.
Okay, another question? No? No, okay. Expenses are projected to be at 97% of budget. You'll notice on wholesale wastewater disposal, we are coming in over budget. So we get estimates of the operating costs from DC Water, and then we get a true up at the end of the year. And the true up that we paid this year for last year was a payout. So that's kind of driving that increase. Some other interesting other contractual services is coming in under. That's maintenance of IT systems driving that. Materials, supplies, and minor equipment. You'll see that one's under too. That's actually chemicals. I got a great response. I love these responses. Jennifer Caberline for the chemicals. I'm like, why is chemicals under? So she gave this great write-up. I'll show you. Look at that. So sodium hypochlorite actually went down in price, and then she explained that they're using less citric acid. So just these details that I don't get to see in my accounting.
I got a question. Do you,
Sure.
is it okay just to throw questions out? Your personnel, that you're projected down by 4 million or so.
Yes.
What is the indicator? What is the reason for that?
Yeah, that's the biggest driver of our coming in under budget, and that is health insurance expenses. So we took an average of the health insurance costs and the actual experiences under that. So I'm going to adjust that the way we do that for this year's budget, and I'm going to take our trend, right, rather than just the average of the premium costs, because the mix of employees and what they're in is driving that. So we do have a couple open positions. We have about 8 open positions also that haven't been filled. So, but the biggest one is the health insurance coming in under budget. And I have some more details here. Okay, so personnel, as we just discussed, is the benefit costs. Wholesale wastewater is above due to the increased estimated operational costs. Other materials and operating expenses will be below budget, and that's our chemicals, and then depreciation and amortization are expected to be at budget. And then non-operating expenses are expected to be below budget estimates as well. That's our interest expense for our bonds. Any questions more on expenses? I mean, we can also address them at the end. Okay, capital expenditures, you're going to hear all about this tomorrow, but as a preview, we're estimating 85% of the original plan. So that would be 162 million versus the 190 million. And you'll hear about that tomorrow morning. So the key indicators, there's our growth. So we had 3,408 through July. Budget was at 2020. I'm increasing projections to 5,000. You're going to see my new chart in the July financials. And we added 59 ERCs in August as of 8/15. 52% of these are from data centers. We are seeing continued development, increase in customer base. I mean, we've had 417 year to date new customers. We'll continue to monitor for the second half of 2025. And then we always continue to practice cost saving and prudent financial planning.
Now, one quick question on the data centers. Remind me again, they have to have a building permit before they can pay our tap fees, or is it at site plan? Where is it that they can pay that? I don't remember.
They have to have an approved construction permit
Okay.
to start moving forward with
Okay.
the application process.
So then with all this stuff, Mr. Yudd, of electricity and its availability and Dominion saying it's going to be way, way out. We've got all these site plans and zonings that are vested, but they're in the pipeline somewhere. Potentially, if there's no electricity for people and they're not pulling building permits, then there's no ERCs and this gets spread out for some number of years. I think Dominion's like on batch 13 or something, 14.
2031, 2036, all kind of
Right.
years like that are being thrown out.
Right. So could that potentially, I mean, we're getting a lot of ERCs right now, but could that potentially be an influence in terms of when we're getting ERCs in 26, 27, 28, even though we know there's a pipeline of development there?
I would say if the question's coming around to me, I would say there's a yes and a no in there, because yes, logically, the steps moving forward to build the building and power it up would require a construction permit, and they would need to have worked out everything with this organization. But you also might be moving forward with every piece of an entitlement, not only just the legislative piece, but all of the permitting. Like the end user may know may have their building plans because they built the same thing in Dallas or Atlanta. And they're moving forward with permitting and therefore construction permitting through this organization. So, actually pulling the trigger to proceed, which is pretty expensive, maybe waiting on that Dominion or Novec batching answer. So I think that's another one of those things that we need to just continue to monitor. If we backed up to site plan approval, which the county has pretty good numbers on that, then we'd be able to maybe apply some estimate, some sort of benchmarking of when would that actually get built. Really difficult to track that power information. Sometimes even if you're the one doing it, you once you pay in to the utility, you start to get better bits of information. But I would say mixed bag.
So some people are moving forward with construction plans, even though they don't have an answer to power.
It's a very tricky financial decision. And so how far do you want to go in your permitting process to be able to say to that ultimate end user, this is totally turnkey. Totally turnkey would be all entitlements, all permits issued, performance bonds posted, super expensive. But if you're going to wait a number of years, I would say the longer that distance from 2025 to 2031, knowing that you have to build a huge building, do all that site development, that would factor into it as well.
Is that consistent with what you guys are seeing?
Yes, and I wanted to add, Mr. Campbell, I think it's an interesting point you raise. And I know some months ago, Mr. Yudd had challenged us on our, how are we looking at these applications and making our projections forward? So I know Tran's not here today, but he stays very close to each and every application. I know he's been working with Sally very closely to fine tune those projections going forward in consideration of things like that. And I know economic development is also, trying to pivot and work, we are partnering closely with them on their new pursuits in terms of industries coming into the county. And that's something that we're stepping into and looking at very closely. So a lot of moving parts, as you pointed out, but.
So at the moment, though, we don't really know what the full impact is of not having electricity available for this whole pipeline. We just don't know. But the bottom line is until they've got a building permits, construction permits, we're not selling tap fees. So.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just did educational, kind of not so smart question. Can you get a building permit knowing that there's probably not going to be power available? Is that, you can?
You could.
You could.
Because maybe that's something the localities and General Assembly will look into over the next few years to tighten things up. But you could apply for all your permits and then be waiting for like.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
We had one example not associated with my employer at all, but one and maybe some of the Loudon Water staff had heard of this, but the diesel generators are used as backup power when your electric grid is interrupted or something occurs. You want to have that backup power. And there's one organization that we heard of that were using their diesel powered generators as more of the primary source because they were in a constrained electricity availability area. And so that one would have been, if you were looking at all the decisions made along the way, somebody else might have hesitated and said, I don't have electricity over here, so I need to wait. But they didn't wait, and that did get the attention of the county and the state for, what type of permitting structure allowed that to occur. And you could see that presents some fluid dynamics there for how people pursue alternative energy sources and how they could be permitted and allowed. But that was one example where total electric bridging power to start up and move them forward was not exactly available, and they used another means to get there.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mr. Yudd, do you think the state is looking at changes that might accelerate these power supply issues
I
so that
do.
we end up getting it sooner than they're currently projecting?
I think if you, it depends on who you talk to. If you talk
Yeah.
to some folks, the combination of interest at the federal level for expediting approvals is, you know, how does that translate to something locally? Really, I think what we've seen is the first executive orders that came out were about advancing advancing capability to be more competitive for AI at the federal level on
Yeah.
federal property and federal permitting. The next cycle of the General Assembly, all of those JLARC study recommendations that came out last December that really didn't go too far forward in the General Assembly session, that could change for 2026. We have talked to some delegates for the local area who have a large concentration of data centers in their districts, and they're really not they're not all that interested in totally redoing how transmission and power get distributed, because if that's perhaps shifted from the State Corporation Commission, then you have all these counties and jurisdictions that might have a piece of that, and that's probably not a good idea with such an important resource. So lots to watch.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, so the next steps is we're already working on preparing our 2026 operating and capital budgets. They're due back to us next week and the week after. We'll be presenting to you in October for the Finance Committee for the budget. Capital spending plan will be presented to Finance and CIP in November, and then the whole board will be asked to approve the budget in December. Then we'll review and update the five-year financing plan officially and incorporate it into the 2026 budget and capital spending plan and present it to you in the first quarter of 2026. It was a reduction of 157 million in borrowing when I did it on the back of the envelope. So
Never ends, does it? Constant budgets, and so it's
pardon me?
it never ends. It's constant. It seems like we just
It's been, you know,
for this year.
I like the process. I think it runs really smoothly here, and it's nice
It
to
does.
start a new year and start
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
baseline of zero again and see where we're
Seems like we
going.
just approved 2025.
That's
Talking about 2026.
100 and something million we're not paying interest on.
Yeah, nice, huh?
Mhm.
Okay. Great. Any more questions? Nope. Okay, so thank you. We'll move on.
Oh, yeah,
Thank
quick
you.
update from
Financial.
July financial.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so just like we talked about, revenues are exceeding budget. And again, we've really talked about all those reasons in there. Expenses are under budget. And then this is at my new forecast line. So I'm waiting for these to hit in August. That was when our data showed that those would connect. So we'll see. I've got a couple days. And then our forecast to 5,000 for the year. And then as we talked about our percentage of data centers, that's the blue, 33 million as of July. And then there's our spend as of July. But again, you'll hear more about this tomorrow, the 79 million spent to date.
Are the connection fees from the property types just sort of meeting expectations? There hasn't been any notable events or changes or anything. It's just,
The biggest one was the power plant that hit in our non-residential that bumped that up a lot because it is non-residential. So, and that wasn't in the budget. So that's that
What-
green section there.
what, this is the Panda Power thing or is it something different?
Panda Power.
Okay. Which is now, what's it?
Atomic Energy.
Potomac Energy? Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, man. Wow. Okay.
So that was the biggest. I don't really budget that way by category, but I do have it, and that was the big overage. But
Okay. But everything else is just sort of trucking along as expected,
Mhm.
the multifamily, the residential and all that stuff. No big changes.
and that's it for July. Any other questions on July? Okay. Then we're going to move on to the quarterly investment review. Okay, so this is as of June 30th. That's our total portfolio. We have 435 million. 172 million of that is in US Treasury notes, and our liquidity was 122.5. Here are our market trends. So if you look a year ago, we definitely have more invested, and our rate of return is average 3.63% yield. The borrowing rate as of June was 4.52. Maturities during the quarter, we had a lot. We had 15 million of US Treasuries. We did have these agencies called. Those are now reinvested, but that's what this difference is between maturities versus purchases. Usually I try to match them, and that one matured right at the end of the quarter. We purchased 5 million, and then the average LGIP rate was 4.48. We'll closely monitor these trends. We'll target all types of improved investments, and we are maintaining liquid investments to meet immediate needs. We do have some, as we talked about. Oh, is that the last one? Oh, we do have some big expenditures coming up, so I do try to keep enough liquid funds to be able to pay that.
Is
And-
Davenport weighing in on projections of the Fed lowering rates and impacts on markets and such, or is it kind of like, who knows?
When we talk to them, we always ask and they kind of say, who knows? We do get feedback from, I don't want to speak for Sally, but I know, we do get feedback from the brokers when we buy these, and they kind of, they like to share what they think is happening, and we keep up to date with what we can. And that was part of the reason why our investment income is above projection. Was everything was projecting that there would be more rate cuts than there would be by now at this time of year, and we didn't see that. So we do the best we can. Yeah.
Jerome Powell's holding firm. No rate cut, no
Yes.
cuts, no cuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the next item on the agenda flows right into, this was requested by the committee to just do a review of our investment policy, so you know what we're doing. So, well, if you wanted to read the whole statement of policy, you can find it. It's actually not that long. It's in subsection 2.3 of our statement of policy. And so it is the policy that we invest the funds in accordance with the Code of Virginia Investment of Public Funds Act. And that was our old system, but that's where you could have found it. Okay, so these are the objectives that we follow when we're investing the public funds in order of priority. So first of all, the investments have to be legal. Second, safety. So I'm looking to preserve the capital in the portfolio, and we don't want to sell anything before it matures. We can, but we don't want to. Next is liquidity. So we do want to schedule investments so that they mature in accordance with our cash expectations. A portion of the funds we do want to keep liquid in our money markets and our LGIP funds so that we can fund ourselves if the need for cash arises. And we also want to just invest in things that have an active secondary market. Yield is the last thing I look at, even though that it's a little counterintuitive, right? But we have benchmarks, and I seek competitive bids so that I can compare that what I'm getting is reasonable. There's other sections of the policy. It's delegation of authority. So the treasurer actually is responsible for that, which is Brian, and then he is delegated to me as his designee. We can also, if the board asks for it, employ financial consultants to do this investment for us. Standards of care, I have to follow what a prudent person would do. So it does spell out what that means. Investments shall be made with judgment and care, with persons of prudence, discretion, and intelligence exercised in the management of their own affairs, not for speculation, but for investment, considering the probable safety of their capital as well as the probable income to be derived. Ethics and conflicts of interest. I can't do business with any of these brokers that I'm working with for Loud and Water. I would have to disclose that if I have any personal investments that would conflict with that. would disclose that. And then all of our investments are held in safekeeping by a third party as required by the code. And that is US Bank for us currently. And then the competitive selection of investments. So I do seek bids. We have a five to six brokers that I email for the request for bids every time that I'm seeking investments. These are our eligible securities. So as we've talked about, there's only certain things we can invest in, so it's not too overwhelming. US Treasuries, US government agencies. I've also put in what our Loud and Water policy is for our percentage that I'm seeking to balance our investments. Obligations of the Commonwealth, commercial paper, we don't currently have any of that. Corporate notes, and they have to be high quality, so it has to be at least 2 AAA ratings from 2 out of the 3 agencies, certificates of deposit, and liquidity investments. So I know that was fast. So what questions can I answer?
It's, the way that is laid out is very, very straightforward, and you can see that there's parameters. Most of them seem really logical, but when you get down to the actual things that we could be involved in, are all of those set forth in the state code? Like maybe the slide before, go back. Yeah, that one, eligible. Is all of that set forth in the Code of Virginia?
Those are, the code actually has others.
Okay.
Super banks and a couple other investments that aren't
Okay.
in our Loud and Water policy.
Okay. And what about liquidity? Is that more broad, like you can pick from other things, or what? It says no portfolio limitation, Loud and Water policy. When it comes to liquidity investments, those are other instruments than what is listed?
Those are, yeah, any funds we keep in our checking and savings account for immediate cash needs. That would be the government fund held at US Bank, which is kind of quick sales, but they're
Okay.
invested, and then our LGIP funds
Okay,
that we have.
okay,
So all of those, when unexpected things come up, like we're paying a retainage next week, so we need $4 million. I'm able to transfer that out into our Wells Fargo checking account.
okay. I mean, I think you could spend a whole day on that, eligible securities and discussion of it. But if those are the points that are allowable, then you don't have much room to deviate from that.
No, and then if you look at the Excel sheet that's in the quarterly portfolio, you'll see all the investments and their maturity dates, and you'll see that they're timed, maybe a little bump in the summer when we tend to spend more money. But if you added them up by quarter, you'll see that it's pretty even. And then I try to ladder in the next months that we don't have when I'm seeking investments. And pretty much if something rolls off, like if a treasury is maturing, I'll seek to invest in treasuries again to keep the mix in our portfolio between these investments.
Okay. I don't know if this is a fair question, but is there an example that you can give us of a corporate note of considered high quality corporate note?
Yep, we're invested right now in Roche Holdings.
Okay.
That's one. What else do we have?
And how do those come to you? Sorry for all the questions.
Yeah, so US Johnson & Johnson, we have, and JP Morgan right now.
Okay.
So I do a request for bids. I send it out to about 5 or 6 brokers. They come back with me with their offers. I put it all in a spreadsheet, and these are all saved if anyone wanted to look at it. And then I compare based on maturities or based on yield or I try to get at that point the highest yields because I've already determined the investment type and the maturity date. And then I buy it through I say issue with this, and it goes through to US Bank. They handle the actual transaction.
When Sally sends those requests for offers, we're providing the broker's parameters. We're saying we're looking for this type of security with a maturity date of August 1st of 2027 through August 31st of 2027 for $5 million. So they know exactly what we're looking for. So they're not just sending back all types of borrowing. That's what we determine what we want, how much, and when we need it to mature. And then they give us their offers.
Okay. Related theme, but I don't think you need to do anything about it, but I express this for my colleagues. We have been in several meetings with local governments where the public is coming out to that entity and they're saying, why are you invested in this? Why are you part of something? And so everybody looks at each other and like, oh, well, we're not part of that. That is, I don't know what you're talking about. But when somebody does a deep dive into some entity's fiscal strategy, investment portfolio, which, many local governments or quasi-local governments have things like that because they're either investing in a post-employment benefit or something like that, or something like this. So I don't think we have to like drill down into it, but I raise it because sometimes you are confronted or presented with why are you involved in this? And you look at each other and go, well, we're not. I have no idea what that is. And then you find out, wait a minute, there has been an investment in some concern in some entity that has some publicity to it or something to it. And so I don't know that that is worth really spending a lot of time on, but we've seen it and we've seen it lately, and it is not exactly a pleasant conversation for those
And I guess
board members.
the thing to keep in mind is that the corporate notes, which would probably be the most critical, right, is only going to be 25% of our portfolio. And then if we're invested in anything over 10%, it's going to be called out in our notes to our financials. In the back, there is a note. So we very rarely have that much invested in one corporate bond.
I would also offer to the committee, similar to in the past, I believe Mr. Kelly, has guided us that maybe we should move away from commercial paper, and we've taken that guidance from the committee. So if the committee felt, we don't have to invest in corporate notes. That's just something we're allowed to invest in per the Code of Virginia. So if the committee got to a point where you felt it's just not something that, as Land and Water, we want to be involved in, then we don't have to do that. We would just take that money and invest it in more U.S. Treasuries or agencies. So I would look for your all's guidance if that was something.
And
that
in
committee
the
wanted to
quarterly
do.
review, on like page 2 or 3, you're going to see everything I'm invested in. So if something pops out, let us know. Obviously, it would be better to know ahead of time. But
Other than just diversification, is there any advantage to be in commercial paper or these corporate notes?
Commercial paper, I would say no. Commercial paper can get a little risky. It's short term. It's not really backed by anything. The corporate notes, like during COVID, when the treasuries and the agencies tanked, the corporate notes tended to have better yields. So sometimes you see that, and other than that, it's just diversification and not having everything in one bucket. Yeah.
And we're not going very far. These are two-year notes.
The most we go out is 5.
5.
Yeah.
So, worst case scenario, somebody's like, man, Johnson & Johnson's a terrible company and something. And it's like, okay, well, we're just not going to invest anymore. And we'll let this 5-year note, just do its thing and roll off. And I don't know.
Now, what do you mean by at least 2 AA ratings?
so with the agencies, Fitch, Moody, Standard & Poor's, they have to, at the time that I'm buying, 2 out of the 3 have to
2 out,
rate them
okay.
as AA or higher.
You ever do municipal bonds?
Yep. Yep. They're hard to get. They're tricky. And that's one thing that's kind of interesting in the policy. I can invest without going out for bid up to 1.5 million. And so the only time I've done that is for the municipals because they're hard to get.
Yeah.
And so to keep my percentage up in the portfolio, I might buy those if I get an offer from someone. hey, we have Loudoun County bonds.
A good one to buy. Are you guys happy with the Loudon Water policy throughout this? Do
Yeah.
you want to see any changes?
I didn't recommend any. I did get the policies from Fairfax and from Prince William and kind of compared it to the code. And like I said, there are a couple other investments, but I'm not a super duper investment savvy person that I would want to invest in those. So I did not recommend any additional changes.
This matches pretty much what Fairfax and Prince William do. And a lot of the brokers that we work with also work with other Virginia clients like Prince William and Fairfax, so they know what we can and can't invest in.
And we handle all this in-house? No, you don't have any
Yeah.
consultant?
Me and Brian.
assistant
No,
or-
we, so yeah, we look at our cash flow, we look at our available cash, and then we see when we want something to mature based on what our projection is. And we look at yields too, because if yields are really high for a 2-year, we're not gonna, invest a lot of money out to 5 years. We talk with our brokers, and then we do, as Sally mentioned, have a third-party U.S. bank as required that holds all of our maturities. So we go in there, and the broker sends all the money through some system that they have back and forth between themselves and U.S. Bank. So they do all of that. But yes, everything is done in-house, and that is consistent with Prince William and Fairfax and other agencies as
I
well.
know you're still pretty involved with,
Mhm.
with these decisions and things, but do you have a staff or is it just you?
Just me.
Okay,
And
so
then I-
basically you and Brian.
If I'm it's pretty much me. And then if I have a question or I'm debating
Mhm.
too, I might reach out to Brian and be like, which would you buy?
Yeah, we do have it, segregation of duties. So Sally will do the buying, but then we have someone else double check the math, do the journal entries, all of those things. So it's not just Sally handling everything. And then we do a reconciliation every month on our investments. But yes, the decisions are Sally and I. Yeah.
But again, it's not that I get 10 treasuries back and they're varying by 0.01%. And then, the fees are, they're
But
so
I
close.
just bring that up because since I've been here, it seems like we do really well with our financial management. And so it's impressive that it's just you and Brian.
It's
And
about 20 trades a year, ish, 20 or less a year.
yeah, but my point is it seems like we're doing a really good job. And so thank you both. And
Thank
for
you.
everyone else I know has a part in it as well. So thanks to everybody. I'm really impressed coming here and seeing how well we manage our money.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Sally, are the percentages of investment pretty fluid? I mean, 25% corporate does 25. Could that change or is that?
Those are the maximum that.
That's
we
the
set.
maximum.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. A couple more questions. Is there anything in policy like a 30 days cash on hand or something like that at minimum, not cash that you have to have?
You don't have a policy
Okay.
that specifically says that. You have your policy is 2 to 3 times your minimum, your O&M expenses for 2 to 3 years. And so we have that in cash. That includes your invested cash because we can sell that if needed. But you don't have anything that says you need to keep 2% of your funds in liquidity. Your policy is just that we can invest in liquid funds, and then we determine as staff how much we're keeping liquid depending on our cash needs going forward.
Last question, the custody account with US Bank, does that ever get bid out or is that something?
It's currently out for bid.
It is.
If you went out and looked, yep. So we'll be getting responses to that early October, they're due. So any questions are due early September and then, yeah. So
They've
you'll
been
be,
good partner so far.
I believe that's who we've
We've
had.
used US Bank for years, so we have a really good working relationship with them. They've seen turnover as well, with retirements, but the level of service has maintained. They also hold all of our debt issuances as well. That's through a separate contract, but we use them for that as well.
Good overview. Any other
I hope that
questions?
helped.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Great overview.
Very
Yeah.
helpful.
Okay, and then we have one more item. Amy. Oh.
Mic on. Okay, so the purpose of this information item and presentation is to provide you with an overview of the public procurement process in the state of Virginia and here at Loudon Water. The VPPA serves as the legal backbone for procurement in Virginia. It emphasizes core principles such as competition, which ensures that all qualified vendors can bid for contracts and fairness, which guarantees an impartial process. Transparency is crucial for accountability, allowing stakeholders to understand how public funds are utilized, and stewardship ensures that public funds are used efficiently and effectively. So just like Sally mentioned, you can go out to the Virginia Code and you can pull up the Chapter 2.2 4300, and that includes the entire Virginia Public Procurement Act. All right. Loudon Water policy. The Loudon Water's procurement policy is written to align with the VPPA. The policy outlines various procurement methods and thresholds, including competitive bidding, sole source, and emergency procurements, each with specific thresholds. Understanding these methods is crucial for navigating the procurement landscape effectively. And the policy describes approval authority levels, emphasizing the need for board approvals for significant contracts, which reinforces accountability in our procurement activities. So I put this slide in here so you can meet the team. We have a team of 5, led by myself, Amy Bevins, the procurement director. We also have Kelly Bowden, Elvia Castro, Nancy Melendez. They are our procurement technicians, and Andrew Smith is our procurement assistant. Our procurement team is responsible for overseeing Loudon Water's procurement strategy and ensuring compliance. We manage the full procurement cycle from planning, preparing, advertising solicitations, to evaluating proposals and administering contracts. On a day-to-day level, we manage purchase orders, maintain supplier relationships, administer the purchasing card program, and oversee the disposal of surplus property. Each member of the team is a certified procurement professional, bringing specialized expertise and a strong commitment to ethical and transparent processes. We continually focus on professional development and process improvement so that we can consistently deliver the highest level of service in support of Loudon Water's mission. We're going to review the types of procurement. So understanding the different types of procurements is key to navigating our processes. We have requests for quotes, also RFQs. Those are used for small purchases, while invitations for bids, requests for proposals, CMAR, design build, they all cater to a more formal procurement process. We also use cooperative or joint procurements at Loudon Water, and at times sole source procurements and emergency procurements. Each method serves a distinct purpose, whether it's securing the lowest bid or evaluating proposals based on multiple factors. This diversity in procurement types allows us to adapt various project requirements and ensure that we select the best value and option for Loudon Water. So today we'll walk through these procurement types, and I'll also highlight how the formal solicitation processes are applied specifically to construction and professional services, since those are the procurement categories that ultimately come to the board for approval. Procurements such as cooperative and joint. So these are both very important to Loudon Water because we use them quite frequently. With a cooperative procurement, Loudon Water is able to leverage a contract that has already been competitively awarded and bid out and awarded by another public body. This allows us to avoid duplicating the solicitation process, which saves us both time and money. By joining others, we also benefit from the shared buying power, which results in lower pricing, and it reduces the administrative burden for our staff. Examples of cooperative procurements that we've used and are currently using a wide range of chemical procurements. we utilize a state contract for our fleet fuel program. And we purchase a variety of IT goods and services through the Virginia State VITA cooperatives. A joint procurement is slightly different. This is when two or more public bodies issue and award a solicitation together. We share the specifications, the evaluation process, and the award decision. This ensures consistency across the agencies involved and can improve efficiency and pricing because suppliers know that they're competing for a larger combined volume. Examples of joint procurements that we've done mostly relate to chemicals, and we're also working on a partnership with Loudon Water for inventory related items. The next type of procurement is a sole source procurement. A sole source occurs when one supplier is available to meet Loudon Water's needs. In these cases, the general manager has the delegated authority to approve and award the procurement. Common examples include proprietary treatment equipment, specialized software, or instances where we need to match existing equipment to avoid costly modifications. Sole source may also be used to leverage existing staff training and expertise, maintain consistency across facilities and systems, or align with stocked inventory so that repairs can be made quickly. It's important to note that sole source procurements are only justified when there's no other supplier that can meet the specific technical, operational, or compatibility requirements of the organization. This ensures that the decision is based on necessity, not preference. In short, the sole source is a tool that we use selectively and with clear justification to protect Loudon Water's operations and ensure reliability. Emergency procurements occur when there's an immediate action needed to protect public health and safety, or our staff's public health or their safety, to prevent damage to Loudon Water's facilities or operations. In these cases, the general manager has the delegated authority to approve and award the emergency procurement. Examples of emergency may include main breaks or pipeline failures requiring immediate repair by an outside contractor, urgent chemical deliveries, critical pump or motor failures at treatment plants, flooding or storm-related repairs, or rapid response to a public health threat. Emergency procurements are justified only when immediate action is necessary, and the goal is to ensure that the procurement process remains efficient and effective while protecting the community, the staff, and infrastructure. This allows us to respond quickly to critical situations without unnecessary delay, while still maintaining accountability and transparency wherever possible. Okay, let's get into the construction solicitations and how Loudon Water conducts these procurements per the VPPA. For most construction projects, we use competitive sealed bidding or negotiations. This involves public advertising and awarding contracts either to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder through an invitation for bid, or to the best value proposal through an RFP. This process ensures transparency, fairness, and accountability in awarding construction contracts. At Loudon Water, we primarily use the invitation for bid process. The design, bid, build method is the preferred approach for construction procurement. However, there are alternative delivery methods such as construction management or CMAR, construction manager at risk, and design build, which can provide benefits such as faster project completion and potential cost savings. This depends on the complexity of the project. Finally, it's important to note that all construction agreements exceeding $300,000 require board approval. Professional services. Professional services are defined in the VPPA as work performed by an independent contractor within the scope of specific professions such as accounting, actuarial services, architecture, landscaping, landscape architecture, law, dentistry, medicine, optometry, pharmacy, or professional engineering. For these services, we use a qualification-based selection. This means that we issue a request for proposal, and proposals are evaluated on multiple factors, including experience, qualifications, and past experience or past performance. Price alone is not the determining factor. Once the evaluation is complete, we enter into negotiations with the top ranked firm or firms to finalize terms and conditions. Again, all professional service agreements exceeding $100,000 require board approval. Next, let's talk about the basic ordering agreements or BOAs. These are a form of term contracting primarily used for architectural and professional engineering services. BOAs are ideal for multiple projects that require similar experience and expertise. They allow us to streamline the procurement process while maintaining compliance and oversight. Key conditions include that the projects must have a similar scope, requiring comparable skills and experience. The RFP must be clear and specific, explicitly describing the types of projects anticipated during the course of the contract. The initial term of a BOA is limited to 1 year or until the total fees reach the maximum allowed for that year. BOAs can be renewed for up to 3 additional 1-year terms at Loudon Water's option for a maximum of 4 years. Unused funds cannot carry over from one term to the next, and pricing is negotiated at the start of a contract and must be fair and reasonable. Dollar thresholds for BOAs are per term, annually, and all projects combined. It's a $10 million maximum. And per single project or task order, the max is $2.5 million. Multiple awards are allowed if the RFP specifies this in advance. Loudon Water must also have procedures in place to distribute projects among awardees without requiring separate price competition for each task, and selection is based on qualifications, not price.
What's sort of our largest BOA that I see the 10 million max, but like pragmatically, what's kind of the highest we've gone? Have we gone to 10 million or is it less?
Since I've worked here, we have never reached the $10 million max per year. I would say.
Who's our biggest basic ordering agreement with?
I think some of the recent projects related to some of these very, very large capital projects like Milestone Reservoir come along with some very high dollar amount professional services task orders for CA services and such. Those are the ones that come to mind for me in the order
That's
of
okay.
several $1 million, but
Okay.
I don't recall
In
any
that
that,
order of magnitude, couple $1 million, something like that.
yeah, I don't recall any getting up there toward the $10 million mark.
No, I would just also offer that on a quarterly basis, we provide a report to the board on the status of our basic ordering agreements. So that'll be in your board reports as a quarterly report.
Great.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mr. Young.
And in the next slide, I'm going to go over task orders specifically. Do you have any questions on this slide?
Going to have a question sort of like Vice Chair Campbell. I was just learning all of the various types of procurement processes, and then basic ordering agreement popped up on the screen, and it led to the same type of questions. Like an example of one is that like all that comes with Milestone Reservoir, there's many different components of that project. So you would then use a basic ordering agreement that allows you to procure different types of architectural and professional engineering services for multiple years. I just have more questions about it. I think I probably have to talk to you offline to say, what is that? Because I'm trying to understand how you all make decisions in awarding contracts to people. And I also think that you mentioned everything over 100,000 in an earlier slide,
Yes.
but didn't that just adjust? It didn't, because those were transportation projects.
Those were construction related. So we have a design, we're going out for a contractor, that would be construction related. For professional engineering services, specifically to the BOAs, the BOAs that we have are only for professional engineering services. And we actually have broken that up even further to where we have a civil BOA that has multiple awardees. We have an environmental BOA that has multiple awardees, a community systems BOA for firms that can focus on smaller systems in the county, so scaled down a little bit. And then we also have a BOA for our GIS work. So within the scope of those RFPs, and I pulled up our civil basic ordering agreement. So within that RFP, we lay out the potential scope of work for the projects we anticipate over the course of the 4 years. And so that can include planning, land use, feasibility studies, land planning, surveying, appraisals. It goes through the scope of what all those potential civil professional engineering needs would be for the course of the 4 years.
Is it similar to like the concept of task order contract?
Yes.
Or job order contract? Okay, then I'm
Yes.
with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so under the civil BOAs, we have 4 firms that work under that BOA. Our environmental, we have 5 firms. So we're able to justify split up work and able to determine specifically to that scope who may be the best fit for that particular project, the availability of their team, the best match of their scope, the experience related to that specific scope that we need. And then we go through a justification process prior to awarding that task order.
I think Dewberry, I think we've had a BOA with Dewberry since I've been on the board, at least for the last 9 years, and it's probably on the civil side. But do we do like with Bowman and Dewberry and some of these firms where they've got environmental and they've got civil and they've got all this? Do we ever overlap with that, or we try to keep it separate? So it might be a WSSI for environmental, but civil, we got Dewberry or somebody like that.
There is a little bit of overlap. Dewberry actually is on our community systems, and then they're also one of our civil BOAs. So for Dewberry, as far as community systems, they just have a component of their firm that they're able to scale down to smaller work within the county that some of the larger firms aren't able to do, or maybe they don't want to do, right? So that would be the only one where we have an overlap.
Mr. Yudd, I wanted to add to get a little bit closer to the heart of some of your questions as well. You had mentioned some of the Carollo task orders for our master planning. And so now that Amy's provided this background, so when we go out and procure the services of our environmental BOAs, we're attempting to diversify in that solicitation. So we've acquired 4 to 5 firms under that contract under which we can issue task orders. And then our internal processes, we look at their qualifications. Okay, is Carollo best suited to help us with our system master planning and modeling? And we go through an internal process where we justify that in a memorandum and outline, those qualifications plus the value. As Amy pointed out, then we're also building this specific scope of work based on a fee template on a price for that contract that's deemed fair and reasonable. But we're also just looking at across those 4 to 5 firms through which we've awarded the contract, how are we, giving out that work over periods of time. So Brian mentioned the quarterly updates that we provide to the board, how we are diversifying our utilization of the firms underneath of the contract. And, as an example, again, tying back to the Carollo task orders, in our previous versions of master planning 5 to 7 years ago for the water master plan and wastewater master plan, we had worked with Hazen, one of our BOA consultants at that time. Fast forward to today, we had worked with Carollo on a couple of additional task orders since they came into our new contract for basic ordering agreements, and we had deemed that we wanted to work with them for this version of the plan update. So I hope that's helpful. Just wanted to kind of give you some additional insights into the mechanics of how we, come to award these tasks.
It is, and I'd just say to the colleagues on the committee, this discussion is to help us help us learn more about what is coming before us as a committee and a board to make decisions. And I will tell you on the master planning, they water and sewer was separated by a couple months. They came separately. And so we didn't see any of that you just explained. We saw the topic and we saw who was selected and the dollar amount. And maybe that's fine and that's enough. But when I observed it, it did sort of raise some questions about here's one firm that we have picked for both studies. I inquired, is there any ability to have economy of scale and that's why you did it, or that's why you wouldn't do it. And so we didn't see any of that you just explained. And I guess the question to Amy is, we wouldn't because you have a basic ordering agreement in place and you have a pre-qualified, so to speak, list of firms that can provide those services. I think if we really want to go to the mat, if we had to, over transparency, if somebody came and said, why'd you pick this person? They worked in Des Moines, Iowa and did a horrible job. And like, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. Then you have to feel confident that these systems that you have in place will vet that out. And so that was the reason for my concern that we only saw those three pieces, the amount, the topic, the entity. And then another one came a few months later for, I don't know whether water came before sewer or whatever, but it seemed a little strange that it was the same firm. And if you add it up, it was about $1 million for the two of them. So just to feel confident that our procurement activities are well vetted and the best decisions come to us for a yes or a no. That's why I was asking. So I think I'm getting it, but I didn't have that at that time. So
Mr. Yard, I can't remember if Darren mentioned this. I think it was in the water master plan, which came second. They actually did seek qualifications from two firms and talked to them before they made a decision to go with Carollo for the water master plan.
okay. And
So they are one of our BOA consultants, but then we are also able, when we are trying to, especially for larger projects, trying to decide which firm to pick within already pre-qualified firms, we can ask for additional qualifications, and we do on occasion.
okay, and to your point, that was within the procurement operating framework of BOA.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I wanted to add, your point is well taken, because I think what you're saying is we didn't really stress some of those elements of how the selection was made in the actual presentations to the committee. And we tend to focus on how the fee was built and maybe say some things at a very high level. I think what I try to convey is we are doing that in greater detail with a memo to file internally, internal procurement processes, but that could certainly be an area of improvement for us, of talking more about that when we bring the contracts forward individually.
I think that there may be, depending on how some of the topics that we talked about at the retreat a few months ago shape up, we may be procuring or involved in procurement for professional services to look at some very complicated, visible, highly politicized, potentially studies. It could happen. And so knowing that we are on the firmest of ground as we move forward, and for us who travel around and get a question here and there, like, okay, here's how it works. And I think that helps all of us with our credibility. I'm not saying there's any problem. And I even felt like that day when I was bringing it up that maybe I should shut up again, Charles. But having these conversations, I think, helps us all be prepared. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we'll just do a quick slide on our task orders. So task orders are issued under the existing board-approved BOAs for specific projects or services. They allow us to mobilize quickly by using pre-qualified competitively procured firms, which is especially valuable for both planned and unplanned work. The process starts with a justification memo. The memo documents the memo documents the selection of the firm based on the factors. So we just discussed this. The memo internally that's part of the file includes the relevant project scope match, demonstrated experience with similar work, and availability of key staff and resources. We also develop a scope and a fee. So the project scope, deliverables, schedule, and pricing are collaboratively defined, and pricing is negotiated using the pre-established BOA rates, ensuring that it's fair and reasonable. Approvals for task orders, again, over $100,000 require the inclusion in the capital improvement program and board approval for a notice before a notice to proceed is issued. Task orders 100,000 and under may be approved by the staff level under delegated authority. All right. And then what the board approves. So just to go over this again, the board approves all professional service contracts over $100,000, and then any amendment to a professional services contract that would cause the total contract amount to reach or exceed $100,000, or any amount greater than 25% of the existing contract, or $50,000. So anything that would take it over that 100,000, we would bring to the board, and then all construction contracts of 300,000 or more, and then the same for those amendments. So in closing, again, the public procurement, it's a framework that ensures our work is carried out with fairness, transparency, and compliance under the VPPA. Loudoun Water's procurement policy is designed to strike the right balance between efficiency and accountability, allowing us to move projects forward while maintaining strong oversight. Our 5-member team plays a vital role in this. They show up every day and they put in 110% to make sure that we're delivering the goods, services, and construction projects that keep our community's critical infrastructure running. And of course, the board's oversight is essential when it comes to major capital investments and high-value contracts, ensuring both accountability and public trust. So hopefully we've answered all of your questions, and we just want to thank you for your guidance and your partnership and support throughout this process, and we're always available to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is it
Thank you, Amy.
too late for one other question?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, when it comes to construction solicitations, I know we have to pick the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And I've always wondered with the responsible part of that, how we go through that. Is that sort of the same as what you answered with when you explained the BOA process and the memo to the file? Is that sort of the same process you use to determine if there's a responsible bidder? And I asked this because when I was on the county, there were several times where we would get an update in a closed session on some construction project that's going on. And it was like so bad that I was like, how do we even pick these people to do this job? That it doesn't seem that they were responsible. So what was our process for determining that? And I imagine that can be hard. And so can you just
Well, our
talk a
goal
little
here
bit
is
about
not to have a template where we ask the same questions for every job. Every job is specific and it has its own unique characteristics and risk that's involved. So you may have something that includes confined space, or they're on the top of, a water tower, much larger multi-year construction contracts. Are there subcontractors involved here? So we really work with the procurement works with the project team to kind of define and go through the scope of work to try to determine what all the risks are, safety concerns, issues, so we know all the right questions to ask. Within our invitation for bid, we make sure that we're including any of those experience requirements, because in order to hold them accountable to being a responsible bidder, you also need to make sure that your documents contain some of these items, right? Otherwise, you're going to have someone challenge that they met the bidding requirements. So being a responsive bidder, making sure that they're providing all of the attachments that we've asked for, being a licensed contractor, being licensed to do business in the state of Virginia, certificates of insurance, a bid bond, performance and payment bonds. But then we also have all the other experience requirements, and that will get into asking specifically maybe about safety. So we can build that, but it's always on a per project basis. It's not every project is exactly the same. So we take that into consideration. All of those documents and emails are part of the procurement file.
Are we allowed to consider past history with the companies and anything that we know about where maybe they did something with the county that went really bad, or DPOR complaints to the state? Do we look into
We can
anything
take
like
that
that?
into the responsibility.
We can?
Yes.
Okay. Do we ever do that? Do we check with DPOR with some of these contractors to see what are the complaints, what was the outcome, that sort of thing?
I would say it's dependent on the risk associated with that particular project, how far and how much information we ask for. So there's always references on a project. There's been a few lately that we've been waiting to talk with people related to their references, and so we're having to follow up. We need better contacts. We need more information.
Okay.
So we're very thorough.
Pretty deep. We're doing a pretty deep dive then, you feel?
Yes.
You're happy with it?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say we are much better than most agencies.
Okay.
We are
Glad to
very
hear that.
thorough.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I think the teams we support, our clients that we support, we definitely try to put ourselves in the public's shoes. What does the public see from that project? From the vendor's point of view, we really try to put ourselves in the shoes of all of the people involved in the procurement to try to get ahead of potential what if scenarios. What if this happens? Worst case scenarios. I think most people would say that we're always thinking about worst case scenarios. So making sure that we've asked all of those questions and all of those things are documented.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Amy, Chair Allen has a question.
Sure.
It's more of a comment. I just wanted to thank the entire procurement department for this presentation. It was very comprehensive. I want to obviously thank Charles. I think he was the one who initiated this. So it's been really informative, very comprehensive, very thorough. And now, when we look at these BOA reports that come quarterly, they do have a lot more meaning now that we've had this background. So just wanted to give you 2 thumbs up for a great presentation.
Great. Thank you so much.
I just had one kind of strange, weird question. Thank you for the red line in the policy. That's always very helpful to see where the changes are. And just back to this whole transportation related contracts, you talked about $10,000, and then there's wording in there that the aggregate there's a limit on the aggregate of a certain dollar amount. Does that square with the first discussion we had about the 10,000? Okay. It just kind of popped out that I see the 10,000 threshold.
Yes, so the $10,000 is our single quote threshold. So it allows our staff, that is also our P card limit for a single transaction. So it allows our staff to buy in goods and services that are under $10,000 with one quote. Anything between 10 for construction, 10 and 300,000 now is an informal solicitation, which can be a request for quote from 3 or more. And then anything over 300 would be a formal solicitation. For construction procurements, anything over 25,000 would require a formal procurement. But I think what you see in the table is that Brian can approve up to the $300,000 threshold for that particular construction procurement, which we don't anticipate having anytime soon. Hopefully, we don't get into roadway work.
How frequent do we go back for rebidding? We don't like what we received, and they can sharpen your pencil. It seems, how often does that happen? Is there a policy for that, or?
I'm sorry, to rebid work?
Rebid, yeah. If we get quotes in and we don't like them and think, oh, that's off the charts, what's the process to go back out and say, let's just do this again?
Okay, so
Or do we just go back to the people who bid and say, eh,
through our
try
e-procurement
again?
through our e-procurement system, we're able to invite all of our registered suppliers and more. So we have probably over 200 construction contractors when we're bidding out construction work. Through the procurement process, we can log into our e-procurement system and we can see who has logged in, and we require them to actually log in and view the solicitation and documents. They can't view it from the public site. That way we can keep track of everyone. But we can see the activity. We're sending out multiple reminders, phone calls sometimes to, are you interested in our work? We've done contractor breakfast this year to call people out, look at our CIP program. So we do a lot to try to invite people out to get more competition. So our goal is always to have several bids on a project. If we have all of our bids exceed the budgeted amount for the project, the planned amount for the project, then our next step is to meet with the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. And we go through and we ask them for a detailed estimate. So it goes through all of the different trades, and we're able to look at the engineer's estimate and compare that to see where were we off, where were they off, and then we can have a conversation with them. So it starts with the detailed estimate. We schedule a call with them, we meet with them, we go through the scope of work. If there's something they've missed, we're able, if there's something they overlooked, or maybe there was something they put too much money in for, there was a misunderstanding, we can negotiate the cost to get it down. But if we're not able to negotiate, we can close the solicitation, go back, review the scope of work, see if there's anything we need to change, and then we rebid the project.
You can probably sniff out the low bidder who's say, well, I'll low bid, but then I'll make it up through change orders. You probably sniff those guys out pretty well. And if they do that, play that game, do they fall off your list then? As somebody who's parent that's what they were trying to do. They're trying to game the system a little bit.
Honestly, I mean, we have such a great team here that manages all of our projects. We have pretty tight relationships and books on everyone, so not much squeals by anybody on our team. So I don't recall in the 13 years that I've been here that we've had an issue like that.
If a contractor fails to scope the job properly, that's on them, right? Unless they can prove that there is something that we have done to cause a failure of that scoping. So it's not always in their best interest to just leave scope out, because then they're on the hook for it.
Any other questions? I like talking about procurement, so I'll take them all.
Thank you. Very well done and excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are we through the agenda? Wow, we got it all done before 10 o'clock. All right, next meeting is September 24th here. I'll motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well
Thanks,
done.
Tom.